Hey guys, this is Daydreamernessa, and I have a video here that's all about hems. So please come and join me and see how you can incorporate these techniques to finish your edges and hemlines. First up is the easiest method if you have a serger. I do several tests beforehand to make sure my tensions are correct by adjusting the dials. You'll also want to pay close attention to seam allowance notches placed on the serger. Make sure your fabric stays aligned with it, and then you'll end up with a perfect serged hem. As you can see, here's the finished edge. And then all you have to do is take it to the sewing machine, use the seam allowance that you want to use and fold it over, and then stitch down. I like to use a narrower hem, so I only fold it over about 1/4 inch or 3/8 over. Now you may be saying, hey Vanessa, I don't even have a serger. What do I even do? Well, in my earlier years, I used pinking shears. Because of the serrated edge, it helps keep the fraying at a minimum. Here I'm cutting 100% synthetic fabric. With this fiber content, there is almost no fraying. If you were to use something with a little bit more natural fiber content, you would probably see a lot more. Here you can see me really digging at it to see how well it can actually hold up. So I highly recommend picking up some pinking shears if you can't afford a serger at the moment. It's a very affordable method, and all you have to do is turn over the edge and stitch it down. Next up is my favorite method with a serger, a napkin edge. Make sure you follow your manual and do each step properly. Each machine will probably have different steps, so I just kind of show you what I had to do with mine, adjusting the dials and then taking out the stitch finger. Just like with the serged edge, a napkin edge you'll want to also do several tests. Once you have your stitch that you're happy with, feed it on through. Make sure you don't pull it too tight because if you notice here, it goes through very slow. You'll get tension lines that will be hard to remove with the iron. As you can see here, I end up with some tension lines, so I go to the iron and iron them out. So for those of you that only know the serged edge, the napkin edge is a very useful technique to create a beautiful hem. Okay, if you stuck with me, here's a technique that you won't need a serger for. And this is probably my most used method to create a hemline. This is the rolled hem. Use a chalk and ruler to help create a guideline. This will mark the first turnover. Here you can see I did about 1/4 inch because I'll be doing a 1/2 inch seam allowance total. Once you've marked your guideline, you can then fold it over. This fabric behaves pretty well, so I didn't need to iron it, but I would highly recommend if your fabric's unruly to go ahead and iron it before stitching down. That motion's kind of suggesting to iron. Here I am ready to make my stitches. I actually go about halfway through the folded edge. Another thing that you'll want to notice is pay attention to how I keep the folded edge with my fingers completely secure the entire time. This will help create no tension lines and no weird wiggles that you see on hemlines. Now there is no exception. At this step you must iron because then you'll have a nice smooth flat surface to work with as you trim it and fold over the edge. Here you can see what I mean by trimming. You'll want to cut as close to that stitch line as possible. This is the crucial step because you'll reduce any kind of bulk that will build up when you fold over the edge. If you have less bulkier scissors than I have here, please use those because it was very difficult for me to actually trim the edge. One final tip is to be very careful. You don't want to cut a hole by accident and catch the fabric underneath, so only trim the seam allowance. I didn't mark it, but if you need to, mark over a 1/4 inch edge so that you end up with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Then you're ready to fold over the edge and stitch it down. Here you can see that I'm stitching about halfway through that folded edge. And again, you can see my fingers pushing over the edge and keeping it nice and flat. This is the final stitch, so you want to make sure it's as smooth and clean as possible. Here you can see the stitches. And then here's the front-facing self side. Maybe it'll become your favorite hem technique as well. Now, finally for the fabulous horsehair braid hem. Perfect for gravity-defying shapes and silhouettes. Now you'll want to actually sew this on the face side first. So take your horsehair braid and lay it on the correct facing side. Once you have your pieces, lay it down so you can finally stitch. I'll go about halfway through the horsehair braid. This will probably make up about 1/4 inch away from the edge. And then this will make up the overall total, when you flip it, 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now that you've stitched all the way through, you'll want to turn it over. This fabric wasn't unruly, so I didn't have to iron it, but at this step, I would turn over the braid and iron it flat. Here you can see me fold over the edge, and then you can see the final step. My stitch line will hit the top edge of that fabric, and it'll hit about halfway through the horsehair braid. Here's my key tip about doing horsehair braids and getting to this step. As you can see, the horsehair braid, you'll want to push it as close to the edge of that folded fabric as possible. Don't create extra gapping because then you'll get ripples and unruly hemline. Now go to work. Once you finish stitching it, you'll want to take this to the ironing board and get out any excess tension lines and wrinkles. Now go forth and create gravity-defying hems. Here are the various techniques all laid out. What I'll be going into next is showcasing different hems using the various techniques I showcased in this video. First up is the rolled hem. This is my favorite technique because it's such a clean edge and it's very professional looking. With this circle skirt, I know the edge will get flipped up sometimes, so I like having a nice neat edge that will look great no matter what it's doing. For this project, I chose a serged hem and only turned over once. I didn't want extra bulk created by folding it over multiple times, so I only did it once and had a serged edge to create a clean finish. Next up, I didn't want to hem all of this gathered yardage. I mean, look at that, that's insane. So what I did is I used the serger and did the napkin edge. This is a lifesaver because you save so much time by not having to fold over the edge or even lining it. If you can find matching threads, it's almost invisible. This Pepto-Bismol pink was actually very hard to find, but I managed to get it at Joann's. Lastly, the horsehair braid. Since I was doing box pleats on a circle skirt, I wanted the edges to be very round and pronounced. If you can see here, I used black horsehair braid to match the dark navy blue fabric. I couldn't find black horsehair locally, so I had to purchase mine online. Learning how to hem garments, and in various ways, will step up the quality and the longevity of the garments that you make. And now I'm sure you can tackle any hemline you face now. If you have any further questions or comments, feel free to contact me or leave any comments below. Thank you for watching!